40 years ago, a young man in Hangzhou, China, had just finished his English degree at a local university. After taking China's notoriously difficult university entrance exam twice and failing, he finally scraped by on the third try. He applied to Harvard 10 times and was rejected every time. He then applied to the police force, and out of 24 applicants, 23 were accepted. Even when KFC first opened in China, he applied there too. 24 people applied, and once again, he was the only one that got turned away. It sounds like a story all too familiar to you, and in fact, you probably have it worse than him. Most of us have lost count of how many rejections we received. But what you probably didn't expect was this man to be Jack Ma, who later founded Alibaba, became China's richest man, and is now worth somewhere north of $30 billion. Now, this isn't to say you're the next Jack Ma, though I wouldn't mind being proven wrong. It's to remind you that the same world that looked at him and decided that he wasn't the right fit is the very same one that just sent you this. Dear insert candidate name, thank you for your application. After careful consideration, we have decided to pursue other candidates whose experience more closely aligns with this role. And yeah, they didn't even bother with actually spelling my name before sending that email. Anyways, that's besides the point, because you'd be lying if you're looking for internships, grad roles, or just any role and said that you've never come across this email. And the worst part isn't even the rejection, it's the careful consideration. Because you know it, they know it, and everyone else knows it too, that nothing was actually considered. Your CV, just like $400, got skimmed for 6 seconds by the middle-aged HR lady who could care more about her Pilates class after work than your entire future. And then got binned, probably because she didn't see a Google internship at first glance. Or even better, was never even read because the algorithm couldn't find enough keywords in your CV. But here's the part nobody really wants to say out loud. Gen Z is actually the most educated generation in history. The most degrees, certifications, most coffee chats, most networking events attended, most cold emails sent, and most optimized LinkedIn profiles within an inch of their lives. And somehow, paradoxically, the larger portion of them are struggling to find decent work than any generation before them, who was told that the hidden secret of getting any job you wanted was to go to the company office, give the CEO your CV, and a firm handshake. The truth is, the previous generation didn't have a portfolio. They didn't do 3 unpaid internships before their first year at college, and they certainly didn't spend half a year building their personal brand. All they had to do was type out a 1-page CV on an actual typewriter, shake someone's hand, and start Monday. That world has long been gone, and nobody told you when it left. I'm sure you've heard this so many times, so I'm going to go through this as quickly as possible. Go to school, get good grades, go to university, get a degree, get a job, and build a life. It's hard to imagine now, but this actually worked a long time ago. A degree back in the 20th century was a genuine differentiator and opened doors that were otherwise closed. Every research paper done on this proved the same thing. Graduates earned significantly more, found work faster, and had more stable careers than non-graduates. So everyone did it. But when something rare becomes common, all of a sudden it stops being a differentiator and starts being the baseline. Just 50 years ago, less than 15% of young people in the UK pursued higher education. Now, it's over 50%. The degree that was meant to act like the key to the door that's gatekeeping financial freedom now only gets you carefully considered for the door. So the supply of graduates only kept increasing while the number of graduate jobs remained roughly the same. And basic economics tells us that when supply is up and demand doesn't go up with it, then the supply is less valuable. So now we see jobs originally only wanting a high school graduate now require a bachelor's. Bachelor level jobs now want masters, and entry level jobs want 5 years of professional experience in Python, C, C++, C#, Excel, VBA, Tableau, R, and basically be their one-stop shop for any problem they had, all for an attractive compensation of $35,000 a year and a half-empty snack cabinet. But despite all of this, you did everything right. You followed every instruction. You came out of the system with a piece of paper, $50,000 in debt, and an inbox full of recruiters letting you know how hard it was to reject you. Let me run some numbers on you for a second. Because in the UK, studies have found that roughly a third of graduates end up in non-graduate roles within a few years of completion. And the Federal Reserve Bank of New York found that over 40% of graduates were underemployed. Just to be clear, this isn't about graduates being unhappy about not landing their dream job after graduation. This is almost half of all graduates working in jobs they didn't even need a degree to get in the first place. So now these people are pouring coffees, serving fries, and waiting tables to pay off $50,000 and 4 years of wasted effort that they'll never see again. And here's the part that really stings. It's the specific cruelty of the modern hiring process that makes trying to get a job so unbelievably demoralizing. Because let me walk you through the wonderful experience of being a recent university graduate. You see a role on LinkedIn. The job has been alive for exactly 37 hours and there's somehow already more than 100 applicants. But you say to yourself, that's basically every role now. So you spend 2 hours tailoring your CV and writing a cover letter that makes you question your entire self-dignity after you glaze the company about how collaborative and innovative it is compared to the rest of the market and how you see yourself learning so much from these industry leaders. Anyways, you're finally done, so you drop the files into the submission box and click next. You see 5 boxes asking for the exact same information you already put on your CV. Where did I study? Well, it's on the CV. What was my degree? Also on the CV. So you sit there retyping everything you've already written, wondering why you even uploaded it in the first place. And after another half hour of that, you finally hit submit. And if you're lucky to get past the algorithm, you might get an online assessment asking you what you would do if Amy spilled coffee on Jack, or if Bob has a task he wants you to do, but you already told Susan that you would complete the report by 5 PM today. And after a few days, you finally then make it to the first round interview, which is now a 30-minute video call with someone from HR who has 11 more of these today, who you will probably never see again, even if you manage to pull off a miracle and get the job. Then a second interview, then a third interview, and then 2 weeks of silence. Because during those 2 weeks, your cortisol levels are probably through the roof since you managed to somehow get through to a third round. So you think to yourself, surely I get the role. But it's only after those exhausting 2 weeks that something finally appears in your inbox. And you already see it. You don't even need to read the entire email. You can see it in the first few words that probably start with, "We appreciate the time and effort you put into your application." In the preview tab, so you know you're already cooked. Robots are rejecting your application, and they're coming for the jobs that they rejected you for. The housing market is cooked, wages aren't keeping up with inflation, and unemployment rates look exponential. And apparently, a degree is now just an expensive way to become a very qualified barista. Well, that's partially true, but that doesn't mean you have to give up now. Because maybe this is the first generation for whom the old path is broken enough and the alternatives are viable enough that choosing something different is not just a romantic fantasy anymore, but rather a rational calculation. Let's take a step back and actually think about what you're actually getting rejected from. $35,000 for an annual salary, perhaps 2 to 4 weeks of annual leave, and an hour and a half commute back and forth to a desk that you also have at home. Meetings that could have been 2-sentence emails and a line manager who's also figuring things out. And maybe if you keep your head down for the next 5 years, you'll maybe get a raise that just matches inflation. If you're lucky, of course. But hey, I'm not saying it's completely worthless. Not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur and take massive risks, and that's completely fine. See, the thing is, everybody now seems to have the same idea of what success looks like. Perfect grades and work experience from the most prestigious universities and companies. But perhaps the goal was always the problem. Because if everyone's chasing the same thing, the same way, through the same system, you're not really building a future anymore. You're just waiting in a very long and very expensive queue. So whilst these companies may not be considering your application at all, maybe it's time for you to actually carefully consider whether this is the future you want to build and the legacy you want to leave behind. The world is always changing, and the skills that were valuable 100, 200 or 1,000 years ago are no longer the same in today's society. And whilst it might feel frustrating that the world no longer deems your degree valuable, it's also time to rethink our entire approach to generating money. Because one day, you might look back at this exact moment in your life being so glad you were rejected from that company because it allowed you to create a life that you never could have imagined.